Hello, have you been indicted? Are you facing challenges from the criminal justice system? Because if you are, I absolutely know the pain you're going through, and I absolutely know that there is a solution, that there is a pattern to break through it. And that's what we are here to talk about today. In this free webinar, we are going to be talking about how to conquer prison if prison is a possibility, how to conquer it, and how to get out successfully, because I know it's a heavy lift. And you'll be hearing me speak about we. Because I'm speaking about myself, Michael Santos, and my partner, Justin McPerney, who runs Federal Prison Advice. What we do is we help individuals carry some of this heavy lift that's ahead. Now, I know that you have a defense attorney. I know that this defense attorney is likely fighting valiantly to bring you the best possible deal. But is that defense attorney capable of answering all of your questions about how this process is going to unfold as these months turn into years? Is your defense attorney capable of helping you understand what's going to happen with your family? What can you be doing today to position yourself for the earliest possible release date, to serve your sentence in the best possible environment, to position yourself for this all-important sentencing hearing? If you don't have answers to all of that, then I really would urge you, contact my partner, Justin McPerney. You can reach him at info@prisonprofessor.com. You can visit his website at Federal Prison Advice. You can call him. Text him anytime you would like. Cell phone number is on every one of these slides. We are 100% transparent, and we are absolutely committed to helping you as you face this very heavy lift. Because sometimes that heavy lift is going to be like this great story from Greek mythology that I like to quote a lot of times about the myth of Sisyphus. Myth of Sisyphus is this individual who was condemned to hell, and his punishment was he had to roll this rock up a hill every single day. And while he's rolling this rock, when he just as he gets closer to the hill, the rock rolls back down, and he feels like regardless of what he is doing, he's not accomplishing anything. If you ever feel that way, the time is now to begin preparing, to begin restoring your strength, restoring your dignity, getting your life back in order so that you can emerge from this system, this sanction, and move on to the better life that you're absolutely should be living, not only for you, but also for your family. So I'm going to continue going through this website right here, through this slideshow, if I can figure out how to master it. And one of the reasons that it's so crucial, I think, for you to be preparing yourself for the journey ahead is these percentages. And I don't want you to take my word for it. All you have to do is Google U.S. Attorney Statistical Report, and every year they release a report, and they show how many people have been indicted. They show of those, the number of people who have been indicted, the federal government has a 90% conviction rate. 1 out of every 10 is going to face a sentencing hearing. 1 out of every 10 is going to be serving time in prison. And my question is, are you prepared? Not because you're going to be one of those 9 out of 10 who go in there, but in the event that things don't work out as you hope that they will work out. Are you prepared? Are you positioned for the most successful outcome from this journey ahead? Because if you feel as though you are, then perhaps we don't have anything to give you. But if you have some fear, if you have some concerns, if you want to know what steps that you can take to position yourself for a better outcome, then the time is now to begin preparing. The greatest fear is the fear of the unknown. That is just historically the case. I mean, you've experienced it when you were launching your first business, when you were applying for college, wondering whether you're going to get in or not. And the only cure for that great fear is to remove the unknown, to position yourself for what is to come ahead. If you can do that, if you can position yourself for what is to come ahead, you are effectively taking an insurance policy out on your life. You don't buy insurance for your car because you anticipate that you're going to get an accident. You buy insurance just in case. And you work with Federal Prison Advice or Prison Professor just in case things don't work out as you would like them to work out. You see, we have to live in the world as it exists, not as we would like it to be. That's one of the lessons that I learned from my friend Daniel. I was incarcerated for many, many years, and I will reveal more about my story. I served 26 years in prisons of every security level. And while I was incarcerated, I spent a lot of time working with individuals who were like me, made bad decisions at the earliest stage of the journey. I made bad decisions because the only thing I was thinking about when I was indicted was getting out of jail. That was all I cared about. And so whatever my attorney told me, I was willing to outsource those decisions to him. And as a consequence of me outsourcing those decisions to him, I really made myself weaker. I felt like a marionette puppet. You know the puppet where you got to hold the little string and you move the hands and you move the legs? That's what my life was like. It was just spinning out of control because I was waiting for prosecutors to make decisions. I was waiting for probation officers to make decisions. I was waiting for my attorney to do things. I had no control over my life. And what happens when you have no control over your life? You fail. You make bad decisions. And that's what happened to my friend Daniel. Daniel was a CEO of an oil company on the East Coast, and his business was predicated on high volume, low profits, so big dollar amounts. And when the government came after him initially, they came after him in a civil matter. So he had an opportunity to settle this matter civilly. But Daniel was adamant that he had not broken the law. And in fact, he was so adamant that he effectively took a scorched earth strategy against the government. And the government responded. Because dealing with the federal government is fundamentally different from the other challenges that you have faced in business. It's not dealing with a competitor. It's not dealing with a price cut. It's not dealing with a marketing issue. It's dealing with a team of prosecutors who measure wins by having convictions. And if you're a successful guy, if you faced challenges, you are not really just a defendant. You are a trophy. And to the extent that you can understand that, you can make better decisions. That's what Daniel learned. Because Daniel initially could have resolved this case civilly. He chose not to. Government came back criminally. Offered him a deal of like a year and a day. Daniel rejected it. Came back with a deal like 18 months. Daniel rejected it. I am going to trial. I did not break the law. And I know that many of you who are watching this video believe you did not break the law, and I am with you. Unfortunately, again, we have to deal with the world as it exists. And as it exists, if you have been indicted, the government is going through with this, and they've got a 90% conviction rate. So Daniel found that out after going through a $10 million estate. He's in his early 60s. He got a 17-year prison sentence. Why? Not because he was a massive criminal, but because the amount of money involved in his business necessitated, according to the guidelines, that he get a longer term. And so with a 17-year sentence, that completely transformed his life. His wife left him. Kids wouldn't talk to him. Lost a $10 million estate. 17 years in prison when you're 60 years old is effectively a life sentence. Don't let that happen to you. When I was walking around the track with Daniel inside of a secure prison, Daniel had already gone through some challenges in the prison because he was a high net worth individual, or once had been a high net worth individual, living amongst predators and having to deal with all of these complications that are fundamentally different from anything outside. Daniel said to me, he said, look, if I would have spent one weekend in federal prison, one weekend, I would have made a fundamentally different choice. There's no way I would have gone to trial, because I would have known a lot more about how the government operates. And that's all I'm suggesting that you do. Invest the time, the energy, the resources. Have a call with my friend Justin Paperny. Learn about this system and learn what you can do to be positioning yourself for the best possible outcome. That's what Justin will tell you, not from his own experience, not from my experience, but from the experience that we have gained in working with hundreds of people, and thousands in my case. I served 9,500 days in federal prisons. You don't have to take my word for it. You can do your due diligence on who I am. And as I frequently say, if you can find anybody with more skills or qualifications or experience than I have in advancing you through this prison system, hire him. I will pay the fee. But I really would encourage you, just watch the webinar, learn, and see if this applies to you. Understand how being indicted by the federal government is going to involve your family. It's not only you who is involved with this. You may have children. You may have a wife. You certainly have parents. You absolutely have people who love you and whom you love. But right now, if you're caught in this trap and you're only dealing with a defense attorney, the question may only be focused on, how am I going to get out of this? And God bless you. I hope that you get out of this. But my experience is that if you've been indicted, you at least need to be investing the time, the energy, and the resources to educate yourself on what's coming. And that's what my friend Justin McPerney and I do. We work together to help people understand what's coming. And if you find value in that, visit federalprisonadvice.com. I'll be getting a little bit more into that a little bit later into the presentation. But what this entire message is about is helping you remove the pain that is stopping you from sleeping at night, that is causing you to self-medicate with alcohol or figure out some kind of way, how am I going to get through this? I can tell you that we have gotten through this, and we can help you get through this. But it doesn't happen by accident. It requires a deliberate plan, and a plan that if you don't know the other side of the journey, you can't conceivably make a plan. That's what we strive to do. That's what we do helping people with whom we work, is we help them understand the ancillary ramifications. We help them understand what's next. What is next? What is going to follow in the event that whether you plead guilty or you're convicted at trial, what's next? What happens with the next phase in the process, which is the pre-sentence investigation? How is that going to influence my life? What happens after that with custody and classification, and where are they going to send me? What happens when I go into the prison system and I've never been inside of this type of environment? What am I going to do with my life? What's next? How am I going to position myself for the earliest possible release date with regard to residential reentry centers? What steps can I be taking to influence the judge to maybe consider an alternative sanction to prison? What steps can I be taking to advance my liberty on supervised release? If you don't know the answers to those questions, then isn't it time for you to begin figuring out what you can do? Or would you prefer to take the road of the ostrich? What does the ostrich do? The ostrich lives in Africa, walks around, he sees lions chasing him, right? Doesn't think that the lions can see him. He says, if I bury my head in the sand, I won't see the lions. And if the lions don't see me, maybe they'll pass me by. My question for you is, are you living like an ostrich with your head buried in the sand, like a marionette puppet waiting for the system to influence your outcome? Or are you taking action? Are you pursuing a deliberate path in the same way that you've pursued a deliberate path in everything else that you have done? Because if you are, that is going to require that you educate yourself on this process. That is going to require that you take action today by picking up the phone, calling my friend Justin McPerney at 818-424-2220, and having a conversation with him. If you don't want to have a conversation, visit the website. Visit prisonprofessor.com. Visit federalprisonadvice.com. Listen and learn from the enormous amount of content that we give away. We give away more content than we sell. Why? Because we are 100% authentic, and we absolutely know that we can help you. So the challenge is if you don't take this action, if you continue to live in denial, as many people with whom I have met have done, you end up in this extraordinarily difficult position where hope is gone, and you start wondering, is this all there is? Is my life falling out of proportion? I'm going to tell you a story about my friend Greg. Greg was the CEO of a publicly traded company. His case involved hundreds of millions of dollars, and the government targeted him for prosecution. He absolutely believed that he was innocent, and I believe that he was innocent. I met Greg when we were together in prison, and we spent a lot of time together. I happened to have I wrote his biography, so I know everything about his case. And what Greg told me is, he said, when I was convicted, he was a high net worth individual worth several $100 million. He said, when I was convicted, I had heard that if I was dead before I was sentenced, then the government would not be able to take my estate because the conviction was never finalized. That was the case with Ken Lay of the Enron scandal as well. Ken Lay died. The government couldn't take his estate. It wasn't the same case with other people. But my friend Greg was a high net worth individual, and he said, it just killed me to think that I'd worked so hard to create this wealth for my family, and the prosecutors were asking for a $140 million fine in addition to his conviction. And so Greg said, I put a pistol in my mouth, and I'd rather be dead than to think that the government was going to take these assets away from my family. I'd rather be dead. Fortunately, Greg educated himself on the process. He recognized that he can come out of this strong. He'd recognized that life is a journey, and sometimes the journey includes some setbacks, but with a plan, you can make it through. And that's what we strive to teach. Now, I can tell you, even when I was in prison, besides Greg, there were so many people I met, and I would tell them, they'd look at me and they'd say, how is it that you're so strong in here in this environment when, this is just killing me? I can't believe it. I said, what are you talking about? You were extraordinarily successful outside. You'll be successful again. The guy said, I don't consider myself successful because I ended up here. I said, look, dude, you didn't end up here. This is where you are right now. You're going to end up where you choose to be. And right now is the time to begin snapping yourself out of it, to begin focusing on what you can become. If you do that, I can tell you something magical is going to happen. You're going to restore your strength. You're going to restore your dignity. You're going to believe and understand that you are the product. Your future is in your hands, and you can carve out that future. And that's what I would urge you to do. Start today. Don't wait a second longer to change your life. Pick up the phone. Talk to somebody who's been there. There's an old Chinese proverb. It's lived for thousands of years. If you want to know the road ahead, ask someone who has come back. Ask someone who has come back successfully. Don't talk to somebody. Yesterday I talked to a guy on the phone. He did a year. He was indicted in 1998. All right, almost 20 years ago. He's still trapped up in the system. He got violated once. Just a business guy. Didn't know what he was doing. First time he served a year and a day. Got violated, came back, did another 2 years. Just is on this revolving path where he could never get his life together. Why? Because it's the great unknown. You don't know how to break free. And even today, after 18 years since his initial indictment, it's still hanging over his head. And my job is to help people break that cycle. My job is to show people that regardless of what you're going through today, you can come back strong. That's what I do with my partner, Justin Paperny. That's what we do at Federal Prison Advice, at Prison Professor, at a number of products and services that we offer. Again, as I have said, we give away more content than we sell. My question for you is, how valuable is your time? Because you've got a short leash here. You've got a short window right now. If you have been indicted by the government, the process is going to move along. How long are you going to wait before you take control of your life again? Okay? How long? How much is it worth to you to speak with people who've not only gone through it, but truly mastered it in every single system? And I really would encourage you, do your due diligence. I am Michael Santos. You can Google me. I am all over, totally transparent. Justin Paperny, the same thing. And I will provide those links a little bit later in this presentation. Right now, this is about you and about inspiring you to take action, not only for yourself, but take action for your family. Not only for your family, take action for your community. Don't allow them also to be sucked into this vortex of pain and despair and, oh my God, what's going to happen to me? No, take action. Move. Make your life possible. It is time to turn the page and to move on to creating a magnificent future for you and your family. And this brings me to a story. I didn't have the best slide. I did 26 years in prison. I don't have the greatest artistic ability. I just really want to tell this story of people who can change. And this is a story about a father who's trying to discipline his son. And his son is a young guy that had gotten into some trouble, and his dad said, okay, we're going to punish you. And I want you to learn something from this punishment. Son said, all right. Son got in the pickup truck. They drove out to the road. They found a big boulder in the road, found a tree near the road. And the father said to the son, your job is to move that boulder. Son looked at his dad and said, that's a big lift, Dad. I don't know if I can do that. He said, do it. So the kid got out and he went to the boulder. He started pushing himself real hard, put his whole brake into it. Rock wouldn't budge. Kid thought about it a little while, went to the back of the pickup truck, pulled out a crowbar, a long crowbar, pried it under the road, started prying it, trying to get it to move. Rock didn't budge. Kid thought for a second, Dad's just watching. Kid went into the truck, pulled out a rope, looped it over the tree branch, tied it around the rock. All right, pulling it. Oh, what? Rock didn't budge. Kid gave up. Kid went to his dad and said, can't do it. There's no way I can do it. This thing won't move, it's too big. I tried everything. Dad said, no, son, you didn't try everything. You saw me, Dad. I went out there, I pushed it, I got the crowbar, it's not going to move. I've tried everything. Dad said, son, you didn't ask for help. That's my question for you. when are you going to ask for help? When are you going to stop the pain that your parents are going through? When are you going to stop the pain that your wife, your children, that you are going through? When are you going to ask for help? Because I can tell you, help is very close. Help is a cell phone call away. That 818-424-2220, that's a text number. Send a text. Help me through this. It's a tough time in my life. Let me figure out a better journey. Because we can help. Why? Because we've been there. We've worked with hundreds of defendants. More importantly, we've come back successfully, and you'll learn a little bit more of that in a later presentation. If you do that, this is going to be a win-win proposition. It is a win-win proposition because you are going to develop the resources that you need to get through the most difficult time in your life. You're going to be able to empower your family. You're going to be able to empower your community. You're going to be able to empower your defense attorney. Because to the extent that you understand what's coming and what you can do to influence the outcome, you're advancing the ball. And when you're advancing the ball, you are taking action, you are making things happen. And by making things happen, you no longer are a victim. You no longer are that marionette puppet. You no longer are just sinking in despair of what's to come. No, you're taking deliberate action steps with a clearly defined end. And that is what Justin offers. That is the help that you can receive from federal prison advice. Because what is going to happen? I can tell you that I work with a lot of lawyers, including the federal defenders in Seattle, Washington. And they fight valiantly, and your lawyer's fighting valiantly, but a lot of times the smart play is to make a deal. The smart play is to negotiate a deal with prosecutors and get the best possible sentence. But a lot of times, defendants who are living in denial, they don't want to accept a deal. Hey, they're going to say, I didn't do this. This wasn't what I did. I don't want to plead guilty to something that I didn't do. But at the end of the day, you got to live in the world as it exists. So in this particular case, the defendant was facing a 10-year mandatory minimum sentence. But through the valiant efforts of the federal defenders in Seattle, they were able to negotiate a deal of a year. And actually that year could have been mitigated and brought down to a time where he was serving his time in home confinement or in a halfway house or maybe even probation. But the defendant refused to accept the deal. He said, I want to go to trial. There's no way. I didn't do this. I'm not going to plead guilty to this. And so I told him, let me talk to him. And so I reached out. They coordinated a Skype call, and I got on the phone with him. And I said, I want you to understand, I know you're innocent. I'm not making a judgment call one way or the other because it doesn't concern me. What concerns me is the great social injustice of our nation's prison system, how many people get sucked into it, and how it not only sucks the life out of you, but it sucks the life out of your family. And you have to understand that there is a massive difference between saying, I don't care if I go in, as long as or pleading guilty to what I did. I'm not going to plead guilty to what I didn't do. To the extent that you can understand that our nation's prisons are filled with people who are serving time who wish they could get back to that situation where they can make a deal, where they could get the best possible outcome. Like Daniel Enright, instead of serving 17 years in prison, he could have settled this thing civilly. Understand the process, and to the extent that you understand the process, you can take that into your calculus and determine whether you are making the best possible decision for you and for your family. So if you have challenges, if your defense attorney has worked with you to negotiate a deal, but you're reluctant to take a deal, call Justin. Figure out how many people we have worked with that wish they could go back to that status hearing where they could negotiate a favorable plea. Because really, as you know, you got to know your options. You got to know that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% what you do about it, how you react to it. There are so many people burdened in the prison system right now that wish that they could turn back the clock and get to that stage where you are. And it doesn't matter what stage you're in. It is never too early and it is never too late to begin positioning yourself for a better outcome. But you got to understand that outcome. Understand, besides guilt and innocence, there are other ancillary consequences. For example, what will you do if your bank says we no longer want to do business with you, or your brokerage house says you can no longer have an account here, and you've got days days, literally days, before you've got to pull that money out and put it someplace else or do something. What type of tax implications are you going to have? How are you going to continue your business if you don't have the ability to do financial planning? I've worked with defendants who had very successful businesses, who were really high net worth individuals, and couldn't believe that their bank said, you can no longer be a signatory on this account. Now, you may not be thinking about this right now, but these are the types of affairs that your defense attorney may not be able to guide you on. We can. Why? Because we've gone through it. Why? Because we've helped people get through it. Why? Because we have seen what you have not yet seen. And we want you to understand all of the ancillary consequences. We want you to understand the pre-sentence investigation report. How is it going to influence you before prison with regard to your sentencing, your classification of the Bureau of Prisons, your designation? I got a buddy of mine who was a mortgage broker. He processed mortgages. That was all. But one of the people that he processed happened to be an organized crime guy. And he fueled a lot of mortgages this guy's way. Well, in the guy's pre-sentence investigation report, it indicated that Tom was an organized crime guy. And as a consequence of that, Tom was sent to a secure institution. He could never transfer to a minimum security camp, even though he only had a 4-year sentence. So he had a 4-year sentence, had to do it in medium security. What are the ancillary consequences that come with that? I can tell you what they are. And I'm not saying that you can't make it in a medium security prison. I did many years in mediums and highs and lows, and I can tell you can make it anywhere, but it's fundamentally easier, and to the extent that you can understand it, you do better. What about the pre-sentence investigation report during prison? What influence does it have there? I can tell you the story. It influences, if it's poorly prepared, if you don't know, it's going to influence your adjustment inside. It's going to have the potential of influencing whether you can participate in an early release program. My buddy Jeff is a medical doctor, and he graduated. He didn't even graduate high school because he was so smart. He was able to finish high school in like his sophomore year and enroll in college. Got his undergrad in biology, went on to medical school, became a surgeon, had a 20-year practice in the Upper East Side of New York, built it, goes to prison. His pre-sentence investigation report doesn't reveal any of this. And so when he gets to prison, he's sitting across the table. They force him to go to this ridiculous class to get his GED. He says, well, what are you talking about? I'm a surgeon. I've got a medical degree from here. I've got an undergraduate degree from here. I said, but you don't have a high school diploma. And he says, oh, yeah, I don't have a high school. What does that have to do with anything? They say, oh, well, our records say in the BOP that if you don't have a high school diploma, you've got some challenges, so we want you to sit in this class. Is this madness? I can take the test right now. They said, no, our process is you go to class for 6 months. What does that mean to you? You don't know what that means to you right now. But you want to know pain? Pain is having to sit in front of a classroom and learning 2 + 3 and how Jack and Jill walked up the hill when you want to be doing something else with your life, but you can't. Why? Because your PSI is messed up. So understand how it influences you. Understand how it's going to influence you on your qualifications for programs and so much else while you're in prison. If your lawyer doesn't know that, he's only going to be focusing on the sentencing hearing. Understand what it's going to be after prison with regard to your access to the residential reentry center and alternative sanctions. Understand what it's going to have to do with your supervised release. Understand even how it's going to influence your employment and how you can get sucked back in. I had a buddy of mine with whom I worked. He was a lawyer. Got involved in some type of a Ponzi situation involving credit, went into the prison system for a sentence of 1 year and a day. But he also had 3-year tail on that. Okay, that means what? On 1 year and a day, you're going to serve about 10 months, 9 months in prison because you're going to get some good time. You're going to access a little bit of halfway house. You're going to get out in 9 months. But you got 3-year tail on him. One of the conditions in his PSI and in his JNC was that he could never use credit without permission of his probation officer. Well, he had a job. Job required him to use a credit card, buy things for the corporation. He eventually was doing okay on this for a couple of years until the probation officer decided to do some investigating and found that he had purchased a television with his credit card, and the probation officer didn't know about it, violated him, sent him back to prison. This time, he went back for a full year with no good time, which means he had to do more time for using a credit card without his probation officer's permission than he did for the initial offense. You see, this is a system that can suck you in and refuse to let you out. So it's really important to understand how you can position yourself for the best possible outcome. And if you don't know what's coming, you don't know how to position yourself for that. So, what about your sentencing hearing? Who are the stakeholders in the sentencing hearing, and how are you positioning yourself to advance the best possible outcome? So many defendants go to that sentencing hearing thinking it's a trial, thinking they got to litigate guilt or innocence. It's not my fault. I did this. That's not the purpose of this. You need to speak with people who have gone through it. And you start by understanding the stakeholders. Who's the judge? Probably a former prosecutor. Who's the prosecutor? Somebody who's looking at you as a trophy and wants to put you on his resume. The prosecutor who prosecuted me in 1987 is currently a partner in a white glove law firm. If you look, her name is Portia Moore. If you look at her resume, I think she's with a big firm in Seattle, I forgot, but her name is Portia Moore. If you look at her resume online, what does it say? Even though it's more than 28 years ago, prosecuted Michael Santos. Okay? I mean, it's still a trophy. It's still a highlight. If you're a high-level, high-net-worth individual, you are a highlight. Why? Because that prosecutor eventually wants to become a higher prosecutor, or maybe wants to become a judge, or maybe wants to get a partnership at Skadden Arps, or Kravis Swain, or one of these white glove law firms that get $1 million signing bonus. How are they going to do it? By prosecuting you and getting you as much time as possible. Understand that. The probation officer, what's that stakeholder doing? That stakeholder is going to parrot what the prosecutor says. Your defense attorney obviously is going to argue and litigate for the lowest possible sentence, but it wouldn't matter who you are. That's what a defense attorney does. He's a paid advocate. The question is, what are you doing to influence that sentencing hearing? You can just outsource it all to your defense attorney, but the time is now for you to take action. That's what we do. That's specifically what I do, is work with individuals and helping them craft a narrative that expresses remorse, that identifies with the victim, that helps the judge see the individual not only for the crime, but for all the totality of your life. Put it into context. And that is something that you can absolutely do. If you've got the skill set to do it, I encourage you, take action now. If you have any apprehension of whether you can do it or not, talk to Justin Paperny. He'll set you up an appointment with me, and I'll be very happy to help. Understand custody and classification. Bureau of Prisons, how does it work? What can you do to influence whether you go to a high, a medium, a low, or a minimum? As I said, I've known people in every security level. Why? Because I served 9,500 days inside. And I prospered in every one of those institutions. And it's well documented. And regardless of what happens to you, I want you to prosper. But I want you to understand it doesn't happen by accident. Fewer than 20% of all federal prisoners serve their times in minimum security camps. And if you watch American Greed, simply Google the name after you see the class, throw them into the BOP, and you will see many of those characters serving time in high security penitentiaries. And what happens when they're serving time in high security penitentiaries? Well, I can tell you it's different. It's a different world from any world that you've been a part of. And I can tell you that you can succeed in any one, but to the extent you prepare yourself, we're going to position you for the best possible outcome and the best experience inside. Understand the special programs, the SMU program, the medical programs, the FDC, sex offender programs. You've got to understand them so that you can position yourself to participate in what is best for you. What is a special management unit? What if I have medical conditions? What if I'm designated to a FDC? What does that mean? What if I'm convicted of a sex offense and I'm not guilty, but I'm going in there and I'm going to be targeted by everybody else in there for retribution? What can I do to position myself? Is that you? If it's you, this is the time to take action. Don't only be focusing on the guilt or innocence phase. Be focusing on what can you do to empower yourself for the best possible experience. Surrendering. What is it going to mean? What does it mean when you surrender to prison? What can you bring with you? What can you do before you surrender to ease your journey inside? Do you know the answer to those questions? There's a lot of places you can get those answers, but are they credible? Again, do your due diligence, learn who we are, learn what we offer, and see how we can help you. Volatility. Understand the environment first. Understand that you're in a world full of resistance. What can you be doing while you are in anticipation of going into that world? What can you be doing to deal with complications such as you're standing next to a guy whose wife just left him, or whose son is graduating and he's been waiting all of his life to attend his son's graduation or deliver him to college, but he can't, and he's depressed and he's sinking out of control, and he responds in a volatile way. Why? Because he is in an unusual environment. And it's your job to figure out, how do I position myself for success in spite of that environment? What is my plan? How do I define success when I'm living in an environment like that you see on the screen, with no privacy, with people, everybody looking at me, everybody figuring out what am I doing? I'm like a fish in a clear fishbowl, and all eyes are on me. They're evaluating me. They're assessing me. Am I predator or am I prey? What did I do? What can I get out of you? And then you've got the staff issues. Are they envious of you? Are they respectful of you? Do they see you as a human being? How am I going to deal with the inevitable disrespect that I feel in there? I got a buddy of mine, well-educated guy, in the bathroom, just says good morning to the guy next to him. Response, fuck you, bitch. How do you respond to that? How do you deal with that? Maybe it's not to say good morning. To the extent that you can understand this system, you can position yourself for success. But too many people get into that system without a clue. And as a consequence, their lives are difficult. Their family's life is difficult. And the question is, do you want to be the individual who is well prepared? Or do you want to be the individual who just lets life unfold for them? Because you can absolutely let life unfold for you. But I would urge you, look at the statistics. This system is designed to receive, and it is designed to complicate your life not only now, but forevermore. So you've got to have a plan. Understand the costs. What does it cost to live in prison? How much is it going to really cost? I didn't even think about having money in prison might be. Okay, well, just like anywhere else in the United States, if you have a financial plan, it makes your life easier. But understand what that means. How is the Bureau of Prisons going to respond to your financial plan? I can tell you, any place else in the country, it's called extortion, taking money out of your account. But in the Bureau of Prisons, that's a policy. So understand the financial responsibility policy, because it's going to have a huge impact on your life if you've got a restitution order, or if you've got a criminal fine as part of your sanction, or if you're a high net worth individual. Understand, what is the cost of living allowance? How much is the Bureau of Prisons, cost of incarceration fee, strike that, COIF. Do you know that policy? Do you know that the Bureau of Prisons can be charging you $2,500 a month while you're in prison if it's determined that you can afford it? What can you do to position yourself so that you don't have to pay that fee? Because, God, wouldn't it be traumatizing to do a 30-month sentence and realize that when you get out, you don't only owe, you haven't only lost your life, you haven't only lost your livelihood, but you're coming out with a $100,000 bill that you owe to the Bureau of Prisons? Bit of a challenge. Understand it. Figure out what you can do so that it doesn't influence your life. Understand the underground economy in prison. Oh, I know if you go to prison, you're not going to break any rules. They're going to be just totally straightforward. Understand the system, because there are risks and there are rewards, but it exists in every prison. Understand how it can influence your life, what you can be doing to make the best use of your time inside of there. My friend Justin Paperny, we've got products and services that can help you with that. Understand the disciplinary infractions, something that you don't think about because you live in society where you live under this illusion of everything is innocent until proven guilty. That's changed if you're brought into the Bureau of Prisons. A buddy of mine didn't understand that system. He surrendered to prison, and because of something totally beyond his control, was waiting in the SHU, that's the segregated housing unit, before he was admitted into the prison. And as a consequence of him waiting in the segregated housing unit before he was admitted, he was never able to fill out the proper phone form to use the telephone. And his counselor came into him and said, hey, I need the phone numbers that you want to call when you get out of here. He didn't remember. Why didn't he remember? Because he's traumatized. He's sinking. He misses his daughter. He misses his dog. He misses his mom. He misses his life. But he's sucked into this system. And he wants to get on the phone. So the only number he can remember is his wife's number. Plugs it on the form. Eventually gets out. 3 days later, 5 days later, whatever. First thing he does, what? Goes to the phone. He wants to call home, let everybody know he's okay. Talks to his wife. His wife says, Hey, your mom's really worried about you. He says, put me through. Very simple. She does the patch and puts them through. Wasn't 15 minutes after that call, here's his name over the phone, Lieutenant. Charles Lewis, report to the lieutenant's office. Charles Lewis, report to the lieutenant's office. He has no idea what that means. Goes to the lieutenant's office. Lieutenant gives him what's called a disciplinary infraction, a shot. Tells him, you've been charged with violating the phone policy. He says, what are you talking about? Says here, you made a 3-way call. He says, well, I just got out of the shoe. I had to call my wife. I didn't know the number. I called him. He said, oh, okay, that's fine. Gives him the shot. The kid doesn't know what's coming. Gets sanctioned for it because he doesn't understand the code. Gets sanctioned for it. You know what the penalty is? 1 year loss of telephone privileges, 6 months loss of visiting. Do you know how traumatizing that can be for an individual who's just surrendering to prison? He tried to complain. They said, hey, you should have thought about that before you violated securities laws. This is a system that you need to understand long before you go inside. And I hope you don't go inside. I can tell you that if you go inside, we can help you come out successfully. Understand healthcare. Understand the medication that you're taking, whether you'll be able to continue taking it. And how are you going to figure that out? You got to visit the BOP formulary. You got to talk with my friend Justin. He'll walk you through all of that. Understand the programs that are available. The residential drug abuse program, the sex offender program, the Unicor program, the religious program, psychology program, so many others. Understand how can these programs influence my life and the possibility for me coming home early. How do I stay connected? How does visiting work, phone system work, mail system work, email system work? How does all of that work? How can I run my business while I'm inside of there? Understand what educational opportunities are going to be available. Can I go to school? Can I get my degree? Can I continue teaching other people? What are the opportunities that are available for me to live a life of meaning and relevance and success? What about writing and publishing? I want to write books. Justin and I created a program specifically for that. It's free. All you need to do is send an email to info@prisonprofessor.com. Let us know that you would like to learn about publishing in prison. Let us know about how you'd like to begin today sowing seeds for a reputation management so that when you come out and people do a Google search of your name, they see the information that you have created. Learn how I did it. Learn how this process allowed me to come out, and within 3 weeks, I wasn't looked at as a coke dealer, but rather I was offered an opportunity to become a professor at San Francisco State University, where I taught for a year. Google my name. You will see it. You will see reports on it. You will also see evaluations from my students. Just go to ratemyprofessor.com and look up Michael Santos at SFSU, and you can see the reports I got. Authenticity is crucial. And we want you to begin creating a plan so people don't see you for the crime, but rather see you for the way you responded to that crime. That doesn't happen by accident. That's what Justin and I can teach you. Think about your release. Think about the residential reentry center and what you can do to get there at the soonest possible time with the most amount of liberty possible. Think about your time on supervised release, where you're going to work. Think about whether your sanction is going to include some type of provision that prevents you from self-employment, as it does for so many people, or whether you'll be able to travel. Think about how your conviction is going to influence your banking opportunities, your credit, the rest of your life. All of this is crucial. Success is crucial, but success comes by taking deliberate action. Regardless of what challenges you face today, you can overcome it. I've got a buddy of mine who I've written about frequently, went into prison as a bank robber, came out, now is a lawyer, worked for the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals for a year, currently is a professor of law at Georgetown University. Who would have thought it was possible? Not even him at the start of his journey. But you've got to understand that success doesn't happen by accident. It requires a deliberate plan. And this is the time when you've got the President of the United States visiting federal prisons, talking about the need for change. When you've got the Koch brothers together with Van Jones, the left and the right, speaking in a unified voice that the time is now for sentence and prison reform, well, then you need to be positioning yourself. How do you advance your candidacy for success? I was a guy who didn't see that when I was a young man. That's me on the left when I was arrested back in 1987. I was influenced by that other fellow on the screen. Some of you may know as Tony Montana, Al Pacino playing that role of in the movie Scarface, sent me into a series of cascading problems. And at that time, I was one of those people just being influenced by the blind, letting my attorney make all of my decisions, not knowing where to turn to make good decisions. And I made every bad decision a guy could possibly make, resulting in me being sentenced to 45 years in federal prison. Now, I was sentenced under a different law than exists today, but I served every day of that sentence. 26 years, 9,500 days passed of me standing for count, of me being in prison, of me walking the track, of me running, of me exercising, of me working. But every day was with a purpose so that I could come back strong. And it's my goal to help you come back strong. How do I do it? I work with my buddy Justin. We work together with consulting. We create lessons. We create webinars. And we work directly with defendants when they are at the lowest possible time of their journey, and we empower them. We help them work to build a strategy, build a plan to get them through this journey at the lowest possible sentence, get them home the soonest possible time, and make sure their time inside is productive. And importantly, make sure that when they come out, they are ready. We put them on a path of pursuing excellence. Know thyself, as Socrates said. I've written and spoken a lot about that. Want you to be knowing yourself. And I'd love to say that these are policies. I told you about the lessons and the plans. I'd love to say that I designed them all and they're all my ideas, but that's not true. Reality is I learned from masterminds. I learned from people who have succeeded. Like Steve Jobs said, a good artist steals ideas. A good artist copies ideas. A great artist steals ideas. And I simply stole ideas from great leaders, from people who have encountered struggle and came back successfully. I learned from Nelson Mandela, from Viktor Frankl, from Socrates, from Gandhi, from so many people who showed me that regardless of what challenge you're facing, even if it's a 45-year prison sentence, you can get through it with dignity. You can get through it with new passion, renewed passion every single day, and you can come back stronger than anybody would expect. These are some of the books that I have written. My buddy Justin Paperny, that's his book, and you can get it for free simply by sending an email to info@prisonprofessor.com or reach out to Justin directly. Just send him a text. Tell him you'd like to read his book. He'll send you a PDF digital version of it today, and you can start reading about how Justin, a graduate from the University of Southern California, a former baseball player, a stockbroker who had hundreds of millions of dollars under management, found himself wrapped up on a securities beef, went to prison. I met him in prison. We became very good friends, and we built this business together. Justin is the premier prison consultant in the nation, and he provides the day-to-day counseling to help you understand not only how he got through it, but how you can get through it. And if that's important to you, you got to give him a call. You owe it to yourself to give him a call, get his book, learn about him. Enroll in our programs. You can get it from prisonprofessor.com. That's each one of those lesson plans on my site costs $50. Or you can enroll in Justin's program, The Blueprint. We'll get all of those lessons, plus the videos that we offer, plus the webinars, plus the regular email coming out. You'll get so much content for a price that is so reasonable that it's like 2 dinners at Morton's. Okay? It is like, can you afford not to do it? Can you learn it by yourself? Well, I suspect that you can. But you got to do 26 years in prison to develop all of this insight. And you can get it from Justin with one phone call. Get the blueprint. Start educating yourself. If you need more guidance, work with us on the private consulting, and we will position you for the best possible outcome. If you don't have any money, tune into the Earning Freedom podcast on iTunes. I provide so much content on there that can help you get through this journey, but it's time. Your time is valuable. Do you have the time to listen to 50 hours, 60 hours of content of me interviewing people or sharing strategies? Or is it better for you to reach out to Justin, share your story, share your strategy, tell us what you're learning, tell us what you need to know. Let Justin question you on what you're doing, and then figure out, how do I advance this ball? How do I create a sentencing package that will help me position myself for the lowest possible sentence? How do I position myself for the best possible experience in prison? If you're surrendering, get the free top 10 checklist. Send an email to Justin. He'll shoot it out to you today. He'll put you in our email campaign. You'll get all types of information. But the reality is, this is a serious time in your life. And you have to determine how important it is to you to position yourself for success. I am Michael Santos with PrisonProfessor.com. Easily verifiable. My partner is Justin Paperny. He is at FederalPrisonAdvice.com. Easily accessible. His telephone number, his cell phone number was on every one of these slides. You can text him. You can call him. You can email him. And you will find somebody who is responsive to your needs as you encounter this very challenging time of your life. I am Michael Santos with MichaelSantos.com and PrisonProfessor.com, host of the Earning Freedom Podcast, and we hope to work with you. We hope to show you that you can come out of this successfully. Thank you very much.